Welcome to the Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs podcast, a place for podcasters to learn what's actually working in the world of podcasting and how to use their podcast to generate consistent leads in their business. I'm your host, Jenny, and I'm so excited you're here.
Hey, Savvies, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be chatting all about creating a newsletter for your podcast. So let's get into the episode. So as someone who comes from a marketing background, I know the importance of having an email list. And I think a lot of people really tend to skip over this crucial part because they're just so focused on marketing their podcast on social media that they tend to forget about the power of email marketing and how important it can actually be. So when it comes to starting a newsletter for your podcast, my answer is that you should definitely start one because it gives you the opportunity to connect with your listeners on a much deeper level, and it opens up the lines of communication so that you can actually have like a two-way conversation with them. And instead of just talking to them on a weekly basis through your episodes, they can respond back and hit reply via email. And that just kind of gives you an idea of who's actually listening to your show, because if you don't have an email list or if you don't direct people to send you a DM on Instagram or whatever action you want them to take, it's kind of just like you don't know who's listening and you can't really do anything with that information. You can just kind of assume who's listening, but you don't know for sure. So when they give you their email address, then you're able to kind of say, oh, this is a real person, right? It's not just like a bunch of people listening with no names. So you're able to kind of identify who those people are once you get them on your email list. And now you may be wondering, okay, great. That all sounds wonderful and all, but what do I even include in my podcast newsletter? Well, I am super glad you asked. The purpose of your newsletter is really to draw people into listening to the episodes. So you don't want to give them like the full rundown of the episode in your newsletter. You want to give them enough to get excited to hit play on the episode, and, not everything in the episode, just like a quick intro paragraph, kind of a few key bullet points of things they will learn, and then a link to check out the episode on your website. And typically I like to say Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I only recommend linking to no more than 2 additional podcast platforms because you don't want to inundate them with links, because if you give them too many options, they're not going to take any action. So that is my tip there. And you may be wondering, how do you actually get people to join the newsletter? So I recommend offering some freebies related to your episode to get people to sign up. And then once they subscribe for one of the freebies that you're offering, then you have your email marketing platform, whatever that is, if it's ConvertKit, MailerLite, ActiveCampaign, whatever you end up using, then that platform will add them to your podcast newsletter list. And then whenever you send your emails about your podcast episodes, they'll automatically get those emails each week. So you can talk about these freebies directly in your episodes, in addition to having links to sign up to these freebies or to your podcast newsletter within your episode's blog posts and just generally on your website. So that is how you get people to subscribe to your newsletter and then send weekly emails with your podcast episodes. So I'd love to know, do you have a newsletter for your podcast? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know over on Instagram. My handle is @podcasting for entrepreneurs. I'd love to chat with you over there and can talk to you about your newsletter and how you can use it better to convert those listeners into leads. And yeah, that's it for today's quick little episode. If you want to check out the show notes for this episode, you can head over to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com, and I will see you in the next episode.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher, and leave a review. You can find us at savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com and on Facebook at Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs and Instagram at Savvy Podcasting. Make sure to join our free Facebook community for podcasters by going to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com/community and join in on the exclusive community just for Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs listeners. I'll see you there.